Imagine starting your workday. It's 9 a.m. and then just this colossal explosion. Your building collapses. People literally launched 100 meters. That horrifying scene was the reality at Sagachi Industries, a chemical factory in Telangana, India, on June 30th, 2025. Today in this deep dive, we're looking at a range of sources, news reports, initial findings, government statements to really understand what unfolded at that microcrystalline cellulose spray dryer unit. Now, for those maybe less familiar, that's basically a system using high heat to dry fine powders. It's a critical step in making certain chemicals, but it can also be quite volatile. Our goal here is to unpack what happened, grasp the awful human toll, explore the likely causes, and look at the bigger picture for industrial safety. I'm trying to do this clearly without getting bogged down, so let's get into it.
It really was a scene of complete devastation. That explosion right at 9 a.m. Indian Standard Time, it seems to have started right in that spray dryer unit at the Pashamalarm plant. The force was just immense. It flattened a three-story building. And yes, workers were thrown incredible distances.
And the numbers coming out almost immediately were just staggering. Forces are now confirming at least 39 people dead, over 34 injured, and still a minimum of 16 missing. Probably trapped in the debris, you have to assume. Around 140 to 150 people were apparently inside when it happened.
Yeah, and the rescue efforts kicked off fast, but they were facing, incredibly difficult conditions. You had India's NDRF, the State Disaster Response Force, local fire crews, police all working right through the night. It was raining too, which just complicated everything.
It shows the dedication of those teams, really, working in those conditions.
Absolutely. Relentless effort. But the human cost, as you said, it becomes terrifyingly clear when you look closer. Many victims were burned so severely, beyond recognition. They're needing DNA profiling for about 25 individuals just to identify them. That tells you something about the sheer heat and force involved.
It really does. And who were these victims?
Critically, a large number were migrant workers, daily wage earners, people from states like Bihar, Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, far from home, trying to earn a living. You hear stories like Bhim Rao, just 24 years old, new to the job. Now he's fighting for his life in critical condition. It hits hard how one event can shatter so many lives.
Absolutely heartbreaking. And authorities did step in with compensation offers.
Yes, quite significant amounts. 1 crore rupees, that's roughly 120,000 US dollars for the families of those who died. Then there's 10 lakh rupees, about $12,000 for permanent disability, and 5 lakh, around $6,000 for temporary injuries, plus educational support for the children. Important steps, definitely.
Okay, so turning to the why. What actually caused this? What are the early assessments saying?
The technical side seems to point strongly towards a sudden, massive pressure buildup inside that spray dryer. It's a high-temperature process anyway, but something went wrong. Either overheating, maybe a failure in the airflow system, causing temperatures to potentially skyrocket to, estimates are around 700, 800 degrees Celsius. Way, way beyond safe limits, essentially turning it into a bomb.
700 to 800 degrees Celsius. That's incredible. And suggest maybe issues with maintenance, improper cleaning.
That's certainly what the initial focus suggests. Improper cleaning or maintenance could absolutely lead to that kind of runaway reaction or pressure event. It often points to, maybe safety procedures not being followed rigorously enough.
And this isn't happening in a vacuum, right? You mentioned this isn't exactly an isolated incident in the area.
No, unfortunately not. Looking at the broader context, there's a disturbing pattern. Over 10 major blasts reported in chemical plants nearby in just the last 30 months or so.
10 major blasts. That really does suggest something more systemic is wrong, not just one faulty machine.
Exactly. It raises serious questions about overall safety culture, regulatory oversight. Maybe enforcement isn't keeping pace with the industry's risks.
So given that history and the scale of this tragedy, what's been the response from the government and the company itself?
Well, the Telangana Chief Minister, Revant Reddy, he visited the site quickly. He's ordered a full forensic analysis and called for tighter inspection protocols going forward. Prime Minister Modi also weighed in, expressing condolences and announcing aid from the National Relief Fund. That's 200,000 rupees per deceased, 50,000 per injured.
And Sagachi Industries.
They've temporarily shut down operations for 90 days, they say. They've pledged full cooperation with the investigation. But understandably, they're facing intense criticism. Accusations of safety negligence are flying, and there were comments about a lack of their top executives being visible at the site initially.
Which brings us squarely to accountability. Where is the focus right now?
The preliminary findings are definitely zeroing in on maintenance failures, particularly with that spray dryer. It's interesting, the CM noted that routine government inspections hadn't flagged major issues beforehand, which makes you ask, How effective are those routine checks? Or what are they missing?
A really critical question. And there's legal action now.
Yes, a case has been registered against Sagachi's management, so the legal process is underway.
Beyond the legal and human tragedy, there's an economic impact too, isn't there?
Oh, definitely. Sagachi Industries stock took a significant hit, down about 15% shortly after the blast. And for the local area, the Sangareddy industrial hub, there's temporary disruption to employment, uncertainty. It ripples outwards.
And for people living or working nearby, is there any lingering danger, chemical exposure, things like that?
Yeah. Authorities have been quite clear on this, thankfully. They've confirmed no immediate ongoing chemical threat or large-scale contamination. The blast was more about pressure and heat, a thermal reaction, not a massive hazardous chemical release. However, there is still localized structural danger around the collapse site. Nearby buildings were evacuated as a precaution, and health screenings are recommended for workers and residents just in case.
Okay. So, looking ahead now, what are the concrete next steps to prevent this or anything like it from happening again?
Well, first, the immediate tasks. Completing those DNA identifications. Finishing the detailed forensic analysis of the site itself. That's crucial for understanding the exact failure sequence. Then, the bigger picture, enforcing upgraded safety protocols. That means things like expert audits, especially for potentially risky equipment like spray dryers, and a much more rigorous training for workers on maintenance procedures.
And the government? Any talk of policy changes?
Yes, there are assurances being made about enacting stricter industrial safety laws, possibly even bringing in criminal penalties for proven negligence. This disaster seems to be acting as a real wake-up call, a flashpoint for the entire industry to reevaluate its approach to safety.
So to sum it up, this absolutely horrific event seems rooted in maintenance failures, perhaps compounded by gaps in oversight. It's a stark reminder of the devastating human price of industrial negligence and underlines just how vital robust safety standards truly are.
It really does. And it leaves us, and maybe you listening, with a difficult question, doesn't it? In industries driven so hard by efficiency, by production targets, how do we ensure that worker safety isn't just a line item or a regulation to barely meet, but the absolute bedrock? What does it take to push for real, lasting, enforceable change so this kind of tragedy doesn't keep repeating?